Hello! Welcome to my new show, Science, Bitches! In today's glorious episode, we'll be talking about Flatearthers. Why? Why do you think the Earth is flat? Oh my god, we've known for well over 1,000 years it's not. Heck, the ancient Greeks knew. 4,000 years ago they knew. People have known before then too, I'm sure. So why do you think it's flat? I mean, come on. I mean, there's so many ways you can tell that it's not. For one thing, things don't just get smaller and smaller as they go into the distance until eventually they disappear. They get smaller and smaller, and then they start to vanish from the bottom upwards as they go just beyond the narrow section of the curve you can see. Now, for those of you who question why buildings don't slant away from one another, they do. Imperceptibly, but they do. You do realize that the planet is huge, right? If the slight hundredths of a thousandth of a degree of tilt were large enough to be visible, the world would not be larger than, say, oh, I don't know, France. The world is bigger than France. And for those who are like, and here's a weird one I've heard people say, well, you can't stand on the North Pole without being smooshed because of the centripetal force, so there isn't any because the planet's not spinning. Because it's not a planet. It's a plane. And then I'm like, no. Just, no. Here's why. For God's sakes. The planet, so, what can I use as an example of this? Alright. See? Centripetal force isn't based on velocity so much as it is on rotational speed. How often can it complete a circuit? This may be 3 times a second. The planet, once a day! So of course there's no centripetal force. Once a day! Not a couple thousand times a second. If the planet was spinning that fast, we would be smooshed like bugs. But it's not. It spins once a day. Its RPS is 0.000003418. What else? How else do we know the world is in fact not flat? Well, for one thing, charting the stars and such, we've noticed slight variations and stuff. This is more about the heliocentrism versus geocentrism, but I mean, you know, for stuff to so the planet Earth, you know, it orbits our star, it orbits Sol, it orbits the Sun, and the other planets orbit too at different rates. So they appear to be moving, when they're ahead of us in orbit, they appear to be moving one way. Then we surpass them and they do kind of a loop. But I guess that's not totally relevant. Another way we know that the Earth, at the very least, is curved, and this is an experiment done by the ancient Greeks. I think it may have been done by Aristotle, not entirely sure. So, there were these two wells in cities hundreds of miles apart, and the shadow of the well was at a different angle at the same time on the different wells. So, you know, there's that. And then your rebuttals of this predictably would be slight variations in the angle of light, but here's the thing. The sun is very, very far away. If it weren't, we'd all be dead. Okay, for the sun to be close enough for the angular variance you're trying to explain away, we would be on fire. And we would be dead. We would be on fire. And we would be dead. What else? Well, no matter how high up you go, you can't see the curvature of the Earth unless you are a couple hundred miles up in the air, so that's no good. But here's the thing. Getting to higher elevation, we can see further. Bit by bit, we can see further and further away from ourselves. If the Earth were flat, surely we'd be able to see a constant amount, and we'd just be able to see, like, effectively we'd be able to see forever, and we can't. And then and I've heard people argue against this with the Earth. The atmosphere has an opacity to it, so that you can't see that far. Well, if that's the case, how come we can see into space? Yeah. Now, those of you who think the world is flat, for the most part, you don't think it's just a disk. You think it is an infinite plane expanding outwards into the eternity. Well, here's the thing. You are aware, I suppose, that there are other bodies in the universe and they move, yes? If the Earth were flat and infinite, then... Okay, for one thing, why the hell is it different times of day in different parts of the world? And for another thing, everything else would be forever smashing into us. Now, I trust you understand that the further away you are from a fixed point, that you apply pressure to a lever around that fulcrum, the greater the force, yes? If the Earth were infinite, and we are in a part of it near the center, in a part that is thawed by the sun and the rest of it is frozen over, which is what you people think, and that is insane, then the Earth, when it gets hit by all these things that are parsecs away, hundreds of light years away, it would be sent spinning, crashing through all of reality, and destroying the universe. The universe is intact. Eh? Yeah. Yeah. You see? You see? Another thing. Now, you might argue that if the Earth were round and spinning, then airplanes would have to go so much faster just to get from one place back to the other than they did just to get there, you know? And no. This is... Okay, the short version is the atmosphere spins too. Okay, everything is spinning together. It's a system called inertia. Okay? We are part of Earth's system, yes? So as it spins, we spin with it. We have a speed relative to the Earth of 0. However, relative to the cosmos in which the Earth is spinning, we are moving at hundreds of miles per hour. And so Newton's, I think it's his third law of motion, is that I think it's consistency of velocity or something. I don't know. Let's say you're in a moving vehicle and you're going quite fast and there's no wind, just because that messes up the calculations, and you drop a ball out the window. The ball, until it hits the ground, will be moving at the same rate as your vehicle. The same speed it was when you dropped it. While you were holding it, it seemed like it wasn't moving at all. Because, you know, but it was. It just wasn't moving relative to you, relative to your car or your truck. So when you drop it, it keeps that relative velocity. And then it hits the ground and it bounces and it changes its velocity and is very far behind you. But, yeah. It doesn't just get flung straight backwards, no, it drops, hits the ground alongside you, effectively moving forwards at whatever rate that you are. Then it hits the ground and it goes at a weird angle. I don't know, I can't do the maths. But that's basically why planes don't have to work harder. Is this making sense to you? Well, whatever. And while we're on the topic of aeroplanes, so, because of the curvature of the Earth, alright, so if the Earth were flat, then the distance from... let me think. The distance from... I need a globe. I can't really think of any two places that are... like, I can't think of two pairs of places that have the same distance from one another, where one is in the northern hemisphere and one is in the southern. But someone give me an example of that. Let's say, so yeah, pair A and pair B, they are latitudinally speaking, they are similar. What I mean by that is, though they're in opposite hemispheres, they share the same distance from the equator. And the distance between the points isn't on an angle at all. It just runs perpendicular to the equator. Not perpendicular, sorry, parallel to the equator. Perpendicular to the time zones. And they're the same. If the Earth were flat and such, then that distance would be much larger. Sorry, that's kind of abstract, isn't it? So, the distance from Tasmania heading eastwards, wrapping around to somewhere in South America, I'm not exactly sure, is probably fairly similar-ish to the distance between, say, New York and Germany. So, but if the Earth were flat, then, because instead of it being tiny circle, tiny, big, bigger, big, biggest, gradually getting smaller again until you reach the other pole, it would just be... Oh, Foxy, no! It would just be getting progressively wider and wider circles forever. See? So there's that. And I'm now bored talking about this. So, if any one of you knows a flat earther, send them this video. I hope they find it useful, and I would love to hear their responses. Let's have a conversation. Let's debate this for Rizzle. Faux Rizzle, y'all. Let's debate this properly. Anyone wants to defend the flat Earth position? I will argue with you all day. And then I'll get bored. And then I'll leave you alone forever. This has been Science, bitches! With your host, Man Witch of the West! Oh, sorry. Are you feeling a little nauseated, my love? He's fine. See? Alright, sorry, I won't do that to you again. So yeah, bye. And I've been stuck on 15 subscribers for like 2 weeks. I need to expand my fan base, so this thing's never going to take off. So just, everyone, prattle on, share this all over the bloody place. See if you can get some more people interested in me, because I'd like to break triple digits sometime before Christmas. Or Yule, actually, as I'm pagan. Ciao!